All right, so we are working on Charles again. We're going to finish the rest of the story today. So, the first thing that I want you to do is think about what happened in the story yesterday. If you weren't here, you haven't done it yet, you need to go back and do the Ed puzzle and go through the first two pages that we read together yesterday. And what I want you to do before anything is give me a short summary of what happened in the story. Give me a couple sentences and tell me what's going on. Okay, so now that you've refreshed your memory about what has happened, we're going to pick up with the second half of the story. So, Wednesday and Thursday were routine. Charles yelled during story hour and hit a boy in the stomach and made him cry. On Friday, Charles stayed after school again, and so did all the other children. With the third week of kindergarten, Charles was an institution in our family. The baby was being a Charles when she cried all afternoon. Lori did a Charles when he filled his wagon full of mud and pulled it through the kitchen. Even my husband, when he caught his elbow in the telephone cord and pulled telephone ashtray and a bowl of flowers off the table, said, after the first minute, looks like Charles. So I want you to think about the details in this paragraph, and I want you to infer what they really mean, or what else they might say when they say it looks like a Charles or you pulled a Charles. So think about the family's opinion of Charles, and I want you to see if that's going to change at all through the next few paragraphs. She says, during the third and fourth weeks, it looked like a reformation in Charles. Lori reported grimly at lunch on Thursday of the third week. Charles was so good today, the teacher gave him an apple. What? I said, and my husband added warily, you mean Charles? Charles, Lori said. He gave the crayons around and he picked up the books afterward, and the teacher said he was her helper. What happened? I asked incredulously, so she doesn't believe it. He was her helper, that's all, Lori said and shrugged. Can this be true about Charles? I asked my husband that night. Can something like this happen? So, first, what I want you to do is go back, and what we're going to do is try to figure out what the word reformation means. So you have a really good context clue. Charles was so good today, the teacher gave him an apple. So what does that show us about Charles? All right, and the husband's response is, wait and see. My husband said cynically, when you've got a Charles to deal with, this may mean he's only plotting. So I want you to infer here what you think the husband believes about Charles, or what are his thoughts about Charles based on what he's saying here. So she says he seemed to be wrong. For over a week, Charles was the teacher's helper. Each day he handed things out and he picked things up. No one had to stay after school. The PTA meeting's next week again. I told my husband one evening, I'm going to find Charles's mother there. Ask her what happened to Charles, my husband said. I'd like to know. I'd like to know myself, I said. On Friday of that week, things were back to normal. You know what Charles did today? Lori demanded at the lunch table, in a voice slightly odd. He told a little girl to say a word, and she said it, and the teacher washed her mouth out with soap, and Charles laughed. What word? His father asked unwisely, and Lori said, I'll have to whisper it to you. It's so bad. He got down off his chair and went around to his father. His father bent his head down, and Lori whispered joyfully. His father's eyes widened. So, based on what you know about words and little kids saying words, and what it says in this story, what kind of word do you think Charles said? So the dad asked, did Charles tell the little girl to say that? He asked respectfully. She said it twice, Lori said. Charles told her to say it twice. What happened to Charles? My husband asked. Nothing, Lori said. He was passing out the crayons. Monday morning, Charles abandoned the little girl and said the evil word himself 3 or 4 times, getting his mouth washed out with soap each time. He also threw chalk. My husband came to the door with me that evening as I set out for the PTA meeting. Invite her over for a cup of tea after the meeting, he said. I want to get a look at her. If only she's there, I said prayerfully. She'll be there, my husband said. I don't see how they could hold a PTA meeting without Charles's mother. At the meeting, I sat restlessly, scanning each comfortable, matronly face, trying to determine which one hid the secrets of Charles. None of them looked to me haggard enough. So this word haggard means kind of rough, kind of tough around the edges, not really well put together. So think about what the mom is saying. What is she implying? She says, no one stood up in the meeting and apologized for the way her son had been acting. No one mentioned Charles. So, based on that paragraph, I want you to make an inference about what the narrator thinks about Charles's mom. After the meeting, I identified, so she found, and sought out Lori's kindergarten teacher. She had a plate with a cup of tea and a piece of chocolate cake. I had a plate with a cup of tea and a piece of marshmallow cake. We maneuvered up to one another cautiously and smiled. I've been so anxious to meet you, I said. I'm Lori's mother. We're all so interested in Lori, she said. Well, he certainly likes kindergarten, I said. He talks about it all the time. We had a little trouble adjusting the first week or so, she said primly, but now he's a fine little helper. With occasional lapses, of course. Lori usually adjusts very quickly, I said. I suppose this time it's Charles's influence. Charles? Yes, I said, laughing. You must have your hands full in that kindergarten with Charles. Charles? She said. We don't have any Charles in the kindergarten.